In this video, I want to show how packages can be useful by demonstrating the use of the Here package. I installed the Here package in the last video on packages, and now I'm going to actually use it. I do not require you to use the Here package. You will be required to use some other packages during the course of the semester, but the Here package is optional, but one that I find extremely useful. I have already opened up my project. Now, a side note. Anyone who has ever taken a statistics class from me before, or even if you're taking it now for the first time, you will hear me say, and students have heard me say this before, to students who are running into a bunch of error messages in R, the first question I ask is always the same. Did you start with a project? If you're starting to write a script for the first time, you need to create a new project. If you are continuing to work on a script that you've already started, you need to open that project. So in the Getting Started with R video series, I had an entire video on using projects in R. So I'm bringing it up again now because that is really related to this package I'm going to show you. If you look down here at my files right now, I am in the root directory of my project. And actually, you can actually see what that directory is on my computer by looking right here at the top of the Files window. It shows me the entire path to this particular directory. The reason that projects are so important in R is because R does not know how to look for files. R is pretty bad when it comes to finding files. It will always look in the same place, and that place is called the working directory. Back before RStudio, the way people used to handle that was they'd always make sure the first thing they did when they opened up R was to tell it what the working directory was. It was a bit of a pain, but that's how you could tell R where to find the files that it was looking for. And if your file is not in the working directory, then guess what? Error messages. So the reason I ask students when they tell me, I'm getting nothing but error messages, the first thing I ask is, did you create a project if this is new, or if it's not new, did you open up your project? Because if they didn't create a project, what's going to happen is they're going to be creating scripts and saving them to a location that is not the location where R is looking for that. Okay, you get the picture? So right now, because we are using projects, so it's better than the old days. In the old days, you had to tell R, here's the working directory. Now we don't have to do that, because when you open a project, one of the first things the project does for you is it communicates with R, hey, here's the working directory. But if you wanted to extend our search outside of that root project directory, then that can become problematic. And that's where the Here package comes in. So I'm a fellow who, if you don't know it by now, by looking at Blackboard, I'm a little bit OCD when it comes to organizing things. And I don't like all my files all together. So notice my files here, and a lot of them you're not going to have any idea what the names of those things are, because I do a lot of things that go beyond just basic R. So people, if anyone's watching this video who has taken my R class, you're going to recognize some of this stuff. But for those of you who have just taken some stats class from me, or this is your first statistics class with me, just don't worry about what some of these files mean. Now here's the project file itself. It has a .rproj extension, and that's always going to be in your project directory. So my project directory right now, you can see here with this directory structure. It's on my C drive under users and so on and so forth, all the way up to the actual directory where I made the project, and this happens to be for my EDRM 710 course, and so I put in Educational Statistics 1. So here are my files, but notice I've also created some folders. I've got a folder here where I'm going to keep all my data, and when I created my sample report, I created that sample report within this, using the data that's in this file, in this folder rather. Going back here to my root, I also have reports, and look, I even have subfolders within subfolders. Here's actually the notebook. Let me go ahead and open it. There's the notebook which I used to create this report about comparison of twins' intelligence. These twins happen to be either one twin was raised in a biological home and the other was raised in a foster home. And so Cyril Burt in 1966 investigated this, and I'm using that data, which is way back over here. So how did R know to find the data back over there? Because when you open up a project, that just opens up this one folder that you're looking at right here. So really, if you're using an R project folder, that will work. You just have to make sure that everything is in that folder and it can't be in subfolders. But what if you want to use subfolders like I do? What if you like staying organized like that? Okay, that's where the here package comes in. So you notice right at the beginning of my, my little notebook here, I actually loaded in 5 different packages. And one of them on line 22 is the here package. And I loaded it in with the library command. So I said, go ahead and load in library here. What here allows me to do is to use subfolders. Here will always, when you load in the library here, let me show you, I'm going to do it by hand here in the console window. When I load in the library here, well, I'm going to have to onload it first. It's already loaded. Let me onload that library. So I'm going to go to my packages, because I want you to see what happens when you load it for the first time. And I'm going to uncheck here. And what that does is it onloads the package. All right, now I'm going to go back here to my files, and I'm now going to load here. You're watching me do it for the first time now because I've onloaded it. And look what it says. What it's telling me is exactly what I see down here at the top of my files window. It's telling me where the project folder is. And it says that here is going to start at that, meaning that you can do anything off of that folder. So notice that my data folder is within this folder. So I can do something off of the data folder. And I do exactly that. If you look down here, let's see, here it is. Here's where I'm reading in the data. So I'm reading in the data, and notice what I'm doing. Instead of just saying read CSV and giving a file name, because if I do that, it's going to assume that it needs to look right here where what you're looking at in this window. Instead, I'm going to say read in the data from here. I'm using a function here, and then in parentheses, I'm putting in quotes data, that's the subfolder, comma, and then the name of the file. So data, and there's the subfolder, and it's the name of the file. I can run R from any subfolder, including this one, which is where I ran it from right here. I can run R from any subfolder, and what that here command does is it says, go back to my original folder, look for the data subfolder, and then look for the twin IQ file. Okay? And that allows me, that little command allows me to go back here to this root folder, go into the data folder, and get the data. And it allows me to run the notebook from any folder. And I ran it from here, this one. So here's the root folder, then I've got a folder called reports, then I've got twin study, and that's where I am right now. But because I'm using that here command, it knows to start at the root folder, then go to data, and then read this data. So you can use this in many different ways to organize your files and your subfolders. Do you have to do it? Again, no, you don't have to. If you said, wow, what he just showed me there is really confusing, then what you're going to want to do, if you're not going to use that, is don't have any subfolders here. All your files need to be right here in this folder. And that's fine probably for your class. When I do things like work on huge grant projects that have thousands of files, that doesn't work very well to have them all together. So I make good use of this here package. Okay, so I'm using that as an example of how to use a package in R and showing you how it extends R, because without that here package that someone wrote, I could not do this. But because I loaded it in at the very beginning of my script here, I loaded it in, now everything's available to me that's in the here package, just like all these other packages you see here. Everything is available from those packages for me to be able to use down in my code to make these cool looking reports.